Today, August 20th, in Gaza. The air was filled not with laughter of children, but with their cries of fear. Bombs thundered, buildings collapsed like sandcastles, mothers screamed for their little ones. But many voices fell silent under the smoke. And in the middle of this storm of war, one small child was left behind. Alone, his tiny heartbeat echoing against the sound of destruction. But in that moment, when hope seemed to die, something happened that no one could ever forget. The streets of Gaza on August 20th were unrecognizable. What once was a neighborhood filled with laughter and the smell of bread baking in the morning, had turned into a wasteland. Thick columns of black smoke rose to the sky, blotting out the light of the sun until day felt like night. The ground shook with every explosion. Windows shattered into 1,000 tiny blades, scattering across the sand. Cars burned silently on the roadside, their twisted frames glowing red from the fire. And in the midst of this destruction, a small cry pierced the chaos. It was the cry of a child, fragile, desperate, yet fighting to be heard above the thunder of war. Beneath a fallen wall of stone, a boy no older than 6 lay trapped. His tiny hands reached out from the rubble, covered in blood and dust. Every breath he drew was shallow, painful, as if the weight of the world pressed upon his chest. His face was streaked with tears that carved lines through the ash on his skin. He whispered for his mother again and again, but his voice was swallowed by the roar of collapsing buildings and the crack of rifles in the distance. People nearby saw him, but they did not move. How could they? To step into the open meant stepping into death. Bullets cut through the air like invisible knives. The ground was shaking. Fear chained every foot to the earth. The boy's cries grew weaker, fading into the storm of destruction. And at that moment, it seemed certain that this war would take another innocent soul. Time seemed to slow around the boy. Each second stretched into eternity as the world crashed down around him. The ground shook with relentless thunder. The air reeked of smoke, gunpowder, and fear. His little chest rose and fell unevenly, dust choking his breath. His lips moved, forming the single word every child clings to in terror, Mama. But no mother came, no father, no helping hand, only the merciless roar of war answering back. Across the street, men and women pressed against crumbling walls, watching with wide, helpless eyes. Some clasped their hands in prayer. Others wept silently, knowing they could do nothing. To step forward was to die. The boy was no more than 10 steps away, but those 10 steps were a river of fire. A hail of bullets, a grave waiting to be claimed. The child's voice weakened, his small hand trembling as it reached out from beneath the rubble. And then fell still. In that instant, it felt as though hope itself had abandoned him. The silence that followed was heavier than the sound of war. It was the silence of despair, the silence before a life is lost forever. And then, something changed. Through the smoke, through the roar of battle, the boy saw it first. A glow, soft, pure, unlike the fire of bombs or the glare of bullets. It was a light that did not burn, but comforted, a light that brought peace into the chaos. The child blinked, tears blurring his vision, but the figure only grew clearer. A man, clothed in radiant white, walked toward him. Every step was calm, every movement untouched by the violence around him. Bullets hissed through the air, yet seemed to bend away, as if the darkness itself dared not touch him. The man knelt beside the boy, with hands that felt stronger than stone, yet gentler than a mother's touch. He lifted the rubble as if it weighed nothing. He reached down, his face shining with compassion, and whispered words the child would never forget. Do not be afraid, I am with you. And suddenly, the boy could breathe again. The crushing weight was gone. The pain eased. He felt warmth, like being wrapped in a blanket of love and safety. Step by step, the man guided him out of the ruins, past the falling stones, past the raging gunfire, past the shadow of death itself. And when they reached the open street, the glow faded into the smoke, leaving only the child, standing, alive, untouched by harm. When the boy stepped out into the open street, silence fell. The gunfire paused for a brief moment, as if even war itself was stunned. Eyes widened, mouths fell open. From behind broken walls and shattered windows, people stared in disbelief. They had seen the child pinned, helpless, certain to die, and now, here he was, walking free. A woman gasped and covered her face with her hands, whispering, "It's impossible." A man dropped to his knees, tears spilling down his cheeks. Others clutched their hearts, trembling as though they had witnessed heaven touch the earth. Rescuers ran forward, scooping the boy into their arms. They checked his body, expecting wounds, broken bones, blood. But there was nothing, not a scratch, not a bruise, only dust on his clothes and light still reflecting in his eyes. The boy, still trembling, spoke in a soft, steady voice. A man of light came to me. He lifted the stones. He held my hand. He walked with me out of the fire. The rescuers pressed him, asking, "Who was this man? What did he look like?" And the child answered simply, with a certainty beyond his years. It was Jesus. I know it was him. The crowd fell into awe, some weeping openly, some whispering prayers, for in the midst of war's darkness, they had all become witnesses to a miracle. In every war, there are stories of loss, despair, and broken dreams, but on August 20th, in the heart of Gaza, there was also a story of hope. The survival of one small child became more than just an escape from death. It was a sign, a reminder that even in the darkest nights, light can still break through. Some will say it was luck, others will call it chance. But for those who were there, for the boy who walked out of the ruins, and for every soul who heard his words, it was something far greater. It was the hand of God. It was the love of Jesus, reaching into a battlefield to rescue a single, fragile life, proving that no one is too small to be seen, no cry too faint to be heard. And so this story stands, not just as a miracle of survival, but as a testimony that faith is not bound by time or place, that even in the valley of death, God is present, and that his light will always shine, even in the shadows of war. War leaves behind nothing but ashes, homes reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and the innocent paying the highest price. The cries of children in Gaza are not echoes from the past, they are happening right now. The story of the boy saved on August 20th is a rare light shining in unbearable darkness. But how many other children will never make it out of the ruins? How many voices will be silenced before the world listens? This miracle reminds us that God's love is real. His presence is near, but it also calls us to act. To stand against violence, to pray for peace, to protect the innocent, no matter where they are. Let us not turn our eyes away from suffering. Let us not allow war to define the future of children. Because if one child's life can be saved by the hand of God, then surely we, too, can be his hands, bringing hope, compassion, and peace to a world that so desperately needs it.